Here's how to create your perfect manifesting scene for any wish in under 60 seconds. My name is Mr. 2020. You are listening to the Free Neville Goddard podcast. It is Saturday, the 7th of October, 7:08 a.m. I've got a one-on-one Rent My Brain call with a lovely young lady in just 52 minutes. And I wasn't going to do this podcast episode today, but I just got an email. And as you know, I'm a little nuts with making sure that you get this right. So how to create the perfect scene for any wish in under 60 seconds. Ready? Go. So years ago, we came up with this little game called the coffee game. And the coffee game is basically you imagine up one sip of coffee in a way that implies your wish is fulfilled. And we did this for a reason. We want you to get the principle behind this. If you find this fascinating, go pick up the little coffee game pack at NevilleGoddardStore.com. But I appear to digress because here's the big deal. Ready? So there's something that you do in your life now that you will continue to do in your life once your wish is fulfilled. But it'll be different. What is that one thing? Well, I can tell you, when I was swinging and single, that's right. When I was swinging and single, I drank coffee. Right? I did. I drank coffee. And you know, as a happily married man, you know what I do now? I drink coffee. But it's a very different experience. Right? Sometimes when I was swinging and single, I never knew what kind of coffee I was going to be drinking. Like where I was going to be waking up, who I was going to be waking up with. I wasn't that swinging, but I was single. I can tell you this much. Generally speaking, I was lonely. Really? I was lonely. And I'd have a sip of coffee with a longing to just share my morning with someone. I mean, it wasn't about swinging and single. I love people. I love relationship. And when I was single and when I was in Florida, and Victoria was back here, and it wasn't like legally, financially, logistically, me getting over here to marry her and staying in the country, doing things right with immigration, you know, they don't have a, hey, you're middle-aged and fell in love visa. Yeah, I'm not a skilled laborer. I'm a spiritual teacher and internet marketer. There's no list of like, hey, we want more of them in Australia. Give them a visa to stay here, because you got to be in a relationship for like over a year, and you got to be showing commitment. And it really helps if you're on the same side of the world, which we weren't at the time. But it was rough. But here's what I did. I was in Florida, living in my friend's house. I lived with two different friends in Florida, Dale and Dr. Ken. And I remember being in both their places. And I remember nailing it at Dr. Ken's. Because I'm sitting on Dr. Ken's back porch, and I'm looking out at his tiny little yard, and I'm experiencing one sip of coffee, feeling like I want to be somewhere else with someone else. Dr. Ken was a lovely guy. He's on his next adventure now. He was an Ericksonian hypnotherapist, and boy, could we share stories. He just loved what we do. Actually, he was an Ericksonian psychotherapist, but I appear to digress. But I'm sitting on Dr. Ken's porch, and I'm experiencing one sip of coffee with the feeling, with the inner experience of being in Melbourne, Australia, sitting on the stoop with my wife. And I remember when I nailed that. Because I was physically drinking a sip of coffee while imaginally drinking a sip of coffee elsewhere. You getting some gold? Get the coffee game pack. Right? We go a lot deeper than this. That's at NevilleGoddardStore.com. So I'm experiencing one sip of coffee with my wife in Melbourne, Australia, as a citizen. And here's what happens. Robbie reaches out because I'm out of money. All right, like I've been divesting everything, paying shit off, getting rid of stuff, and giving as much as I can to other people. Just getting rid of stuff. And Robbie reaches out, and Robbie says, hey, will you make me a little private course, and I'll give you this much money? I'm like, all right. So he gave me half of what I needed to fly around the world and buy a few cigars. So I bought a few cigars. I looked at plane tickets. They're twice as much as the money I have. And I'm all right because, remember, I had that one sip of coffee, and I nailed it the way that we teach it. And I experienced that one sip of coffee. I didn't dig up the seed. I pulled a weed. I planted a seed. Meanwhile, one night it was like 11:30 at night. I'm trying to check the air rates or the airline things. And I think they had 2 seats at the price that I could do. And then they had 1 seat at the price that I could do. And so I did it. I bought the ticket. I had $50 left over. Well, I bought the ticket. I had enough money to get a limo to the airport. I have $50 left over. I gave the last $50 to the limo driver. All right. He was having a hard time, and I figured, you know what? Yeah, I'm going on faith, man. I was given free meals the whole way over. It was fascinating. I was upgraded. I was given free meals. Just tremendously cool. I landed in I landed in Sydney, Australia, and immediately got detained by customs, border force. They said, hey, you've been coming into the country for close to a year and a half. All right. What's the deal? And I told him, I says, look, I met a woman, I fell in love. And they said, well, you're on the wrong visa. I said, well, there isn't a right visa, is there? So we had to talk. Turns out I broke a couple laws. I explained to them exactly what I did, when I did it, and they said, got it. Yeah, it doesn't sound like you intentionally broke the law. There was a misunderstanding about a few words in legalese. You see, I'm ex-law enforcement, United States of America. They're border force Australia. The words mean something different here. Who would have thought? So we had a chat, and after 3 hours in the interrogation box, they kicked me loose. And I came down here, and I think it was 2 days before I had to leave the country, we got married. It took us that long to get everything together, to get Victoria's divorce certificate, to get all of our shit in order, to get a celebrant. We got married. We went to the immigration people. We filed the thing for a permanent resident visa. They took it. They got back to me. And at some point later, I became a citizen. 2 years I had a schedule, and that's another story. But I want you to get the gold here, because one sip of coffee. What would I do? And again, here's the question. What would I do? What do I do now that I will be doing after my wish is fulfilled, but I would experience it differently? And having that one sip of coffee with someone that I love, being able to share both the silence and the stuff of the morning with her, that implied a couple things, didn't it? One sip of coffee. If this resonates with you, if you want to dive deeper, again, the podcast is only 5-10 minutes long. You've got a cool little pack on the coffee game. You can get that at NevilleGoddardStore.com. I'd strongly suggest The Secret of Surrender to go along with that, and also the streetcar system. Read up on those. You'll see why it makes a tremendous little power pack, all 3 of those. Because you got to surrender to the state of your wish fulfilled, and the streetcar system teaches you how to use anything in your environment as something that helps you stay in the state or deep in the state of your wish fulfilled. My name is Mr. 2020. It has been a pleasure sharing this story with you today. And now what I want you to do is imagine up something lovely as we go into the silence. Alrighty. I'd love to know how this gives to you. Drop me an email. You can find my email too at nevillegoddardstore.com. Have fun. Have a lovely day. Thank you for listening. And isn't it cool how one little sip moved me around the world? Have a lovely day. See ya.